Friends, we meet again. Good to have you back. You've caught me on my way to Crookston Castle in Glasgow. After checking the weather for like the 100th time, I decided to bring a few materials with me so I could sketch outside. And since the day was cold but sunny, my little family tagged along. I've never visited Crookston Castle, and so I was curious how much of the structure was actually intact. Toby was leading the way as usual, majorly distracted, but still the first one to check out any space. As the castle came into view, the bright green of the grass and on the bark of the trees made it look quite pretty. With all the upset happening across the world, it's refreshing to feel the stillness and calm of the outdoors. It sure does feel like spring is coming. As I'm enjoying the sunshine, throwing around a branch for Toby, I can't help but think of the general concept of belonging. Here I am in Scotland, a daughter of immigrant parents that were born into poverty in the countryside of Mexico, parents whose mother tongue is Spanish, parents who experienced the hardship of being uprooted. Here I am, spending a morning in front of a medieval castle without having to worry about my safety. I think most of us yearn to belong somewhere. That doesn't mean that we lose our identity or our roots. Belonging is acceptance of who we are, and some of us have to move into careers to find that, or pick a hobby, or move to another country. Kinda like me. All my life I've been searching for a sense of belonging. For me, belonging is a mental state and physical place that encourages me to bring more of who I am, my values, to the surface. It's where my soul can express itself to me and the world, where internally and externally I'm aligned with what I care about. It's like trying to find a family that understands my perspective on life and will never accept any deviation from it, because it's foundational to the air I breathe. Belonging for me has come to mean living in my passion. I didn't know what that would look like for a while because my passion lay with my creativity. I postponed finding where I belonged because I was scared. Scared about where it would take me, scared about failing, scared about disappointing others. Now, I know what you're thinking. What does this have to do with today's sketching practice? Well, friends, it has everything to do with it. Sketching has helped me feel like I do belong on this art path. It's a feeling that validates my decisions and my way forward. It's a feeling that I've known before, and that has led me to live in Ireland, England, and now Scotland. Sketching so far has taught me that the development of one's art should be messy and awkward. Sketching is another expression for figuring it out. You're not supposed to know what your style is or how to blend colors so that they accurately capture the shades of a castle. Sketching is the classroom, not the art gallery. Sketching has given me a space to fall more in love with my efforts without judgment or pressure. It's opened up a path into art that makes me feel like my objective is within reach, that I can hone my creativity and let it represent everything I want it to. Is it strange to say that the belonging which art has given me has also helped me feel like I belong here in Scotland? Don't get me wrong. I miss my family and being surrounded by my Mexican culture. I just don't believe I would be able to experience so much personal growth like I have. I think I needed to physically remove myself from the noise of people's opinions and perspectives. It's my nature to want to respect and take on what everyone has to say about my plans or decisions, but I was leaving out the most important person from the conversation. Me. Looking back on my moves from country to country, I'm proud that I never gave up on wanting to find where I belong. My commitment didn't make sense to those around me. It hardly made sense to me. It's interesting because I was metaphorically sketching my way to Scotland. The line work of all my mini pivots, leaving the corporate world, returning to school, moving across the world, moving back home, moving across the world again, was evolving. It's only now that I've lived in Scotland for 5 years that I feel I can move on from all the pencil and pen and I could start laying down color. I have found a home where my soul belongs, where I can continue to develop who I am, what my art is, and how I can serve my community. However, the question that I keep thinking about is why belonging to me has been so important. Is it because of my very mixed identity? What does it mean to be a first-gen Mexican American? What does it mean to be born from a mestizaje? What does it mean to have Mexican indigenous features but a clear American accent? Or perhaps it's because my untraditional decisions in life made me feel like somewhat of an outsider within my family, my own culture. I think the answer is a little bit of both. As Gloria Zaldúa, a philosopher and scholar, has said, living on borders and in margins, keeping intact one's shifting and multiple identity and integrity is like trying to swim in a new element, an alien element. Friends, living in the in-between can get lonely and exhausting. And while I live in Nepatla, the state of in-betweenness, every day still, its weight feels livable, manageable here in Scotland, and that's enough for me. I'm not gonna lie, sketching Crookston Castle was a little overwhelming. I wanted to add as much detail as possible within the 20 minutes I gave myself for pencil and pen work. I tried to keep in mind that I at least needed to get the basic shapes done and out of the way. The lighting was perfect for today's sketch. With how much detail I wanted to convey, I already knew this sketch may just look like a mess of rectangles and squares. I don't think I've ever been this messy with my line work. It also didn't help that I kept looking up at the castle every second because I couldn't remember where I wanted the lines to be drawn from. I brought with me a 0.4mm pen and a 0.9mm pen, both recent purchases. I went over my pencil as fast as I could. I was more than halfway through my time. The tricky bit really was adding in all the different outlinings of the stone. Most were fully intact, but many others had crumbled. I was determined to capture a level of depth, and I feel that I relied on how I aligned the direction of all the stones. At one point, I saw a couple having a wander around the castle as I was finishing up. I felt the nerves begin to stir. The thought of them coming over and looking over my shoulder was something I didn't want to happen. It's way too early in my journey for me to be okay with that. Luckily, they laughed and I had the castle to myself again. A few moments later, I got a hint from my little team that they were hungry and a bit cold, so I packed up. The next day I took out my sketch. It was time for some color. And of course, my phone was nearby. I set the timer for 20 minutes. Toby was a bit curious about what I was up to and decided to make sure everything was safe enough for me to proceed. I reassured him that everything was fine with a couple of cuddles. I was slightly anxious about adding color. I didn't know how interesting I could make my sketch with a very limited and bland color scheme. Interesting in the sense of depth and detail. Castles are rather boring in terms of liveliness, and well, I knew that meant using only browns, grays, blacks, and some yellow. I really have to pick a more colorful subject next time. The color pencil soon came out in full force. Time was not on my side, so I began a chaotic application of color to the castle. I didn't know how much pressure I wanted to use for each color pencil I picked up. I recently learned that to build color with color pencils, pressure should be applied ever so lightly. But I guess that didn't apply here because it's a sketch and I'm experimenting, right? I wore down my color pencils in the sketch more than I've ever done. It felt so wrong. It felt like I was violating a rule. As you can see, I felt so pressed for time that while I was coloring with one hand, I was holding all the other colors that I was using in the other hand. Did this save me time? Probably not. But I felt more in control of the situation, and that, my friends, is a little win. I switched from brown to black to white, back to black to gray, back to black. The rhythm wasn't really my cup of tea, but I was fixed on not making it look like a first grader's first day of art class. I kept looking back at the reference photo, hoping to see a shimmer of turquoise or purple that somehow my eyes had missed earlier. Friends, I found no such thing. The timer went off, and I decided to give myself another 10 minutes. I just needed to tidy up a thing or two. I have to admit that problem solving under pressure is pretty darn fun. Requiring my mind to move and translate what I see and find ways to create texture, detail, shade, etc. is exciting and fulfilling. I'm learning as I'm creating. My mind is thinking of all the possibilities of how to move my pen, and my fingers are getting green with pastel. It's a fully immersive experience. I'm creating with my mind, and I'm literally feeling my creativity working. It's quite amazing what interpretation of a subject that the mind delivers to the page. It's a story that will vary based on who the artist is, of course. It's a story that can't be replicated because we all experience life in distinct ways. I've always believed that art is magical and healing. A healing magic, because it speaks to our souls in the way they need to be nurtured. But I didn't understand what was the source of that magic. I couldn't put my finger on its origins. Mainly because all artists that I know, from the little art education that I've received, were prodigies and seem to have been divinely appointed to be an artist. Reflecting on my mind-body connection while I sketch, I was a little taken aback by my little revelation. All the minutes of my life experiences have led me to view this castle in this way and interpret its shape and color in this way. It's the story of each minute in our lives that is the source of this healing magic. No divine appointment has ever been needed. Art is storytelling, and I hope my art will never stop telling my story, a story of a dreamer. So friends, make some art today. Tell your story. Let the world see, hear, and feel you. Thank you for tuning in, friends. See you next week.